Let's get more from Jamil Jaffer, who's the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute at George Mason University. Jamil, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Henry.
Right. No, good. You're the right person to talk to here because, I mean, this ceasefire is so shaky. I mean, first of all, relations between Iran and the US per se, but then also the degree to which relations between Israel and Hezbollah impinge on any attempt to make progress in negotiations over 60 days. So when you hear that this afternoon, both the IDF and Hezbollah, not the Lebanese government, but Hezbollah itself, agreed to a ceasefire, what did you think?
Well, look, I mean, we'll see how long it lasts. As we've seen over and over in this conflict, Hezbollah continues to attack Israel in the north. Israel continues to respond. Israel seeks to take out Hezbollah infrastructure when they suspect attacks are being planned. So both sides are keeping this fight going. But again, Hezbollah, for what it's worth, is the terrorist group and Israel is the country. And so, you know, at the end of the day, if you're picking a side in this, you got to go with the nation states of Lebanon and Israel versus the terrorist group Hezbollah. But look, it's not clear how this will play out. They've entered into a ceasefire. We'll see how long, days, minutes, hours it lasts, but at least a step in the right direction as long as either side doesn't attack the other.
What do you think the early threats to this nascent ceasefire are? Because in the previous breaches, Hezbollah has accused Israel, and Israel, of course, has accused Hezbollah, but the unfortunate thing is innocent people get killed.
No, that's exactly right. Well, what we've seen for sure, no doubt, is that Hezbollah has repeatedly attacked Israel from Lebanese territory into Israel proper. So we know that's happening. That's happening with some regularity. Israel continues to respond. Now, there have been times at which, quote unquote, Israel has started it by going after Hezbollah leadership targets and Hezbollah, operations and the like, operational planning. But typically what happens there, and this is a position the United States has taken for the better part of 25 years since the war on terror began, which is when we suspect a terrorist group is planning an attack, we don't have to wait for the attack to happen in order to take action against that terrorist group, its leadership, or its infrastructure. Israel takes the same position and is taking that position in an area that, as we know, the Lebanese government doesn't have effective control over. Again, a position the United States government has regularly taken around the globe. If you are unwilling or unable to control your territory and there's a terrorist group operating against us or planning against us, we will take action. The Israelis are doing the same thing on their side.
The problem is, though, the terrorist group is from that country. It has support in that country. And there are lots of people, innocent people, who live alongside the militias and the fighters, the terrorists. And as Trump himself pointed out earlier this week, they'll blow up a whole building to get a few guys, a lot of innocent people in those buildings.
Well, look, whether they have a support or not in Lebanon is sort of irrelevant. Hezbollah is an internationally understood terrorist group. It's a foreign terrorist organization under American law. Nobody doubts Hezbollah's role as a terrorist group. The Lebanese government doesn't want them there. The Lebanese government has tried to push them out. They're ineffectual against Hezbollah, which has a lot of fighters and a lot of weaponry. And it's an Iranian-backed terrorist group, so it's a state-sponsored terrorist group in addition. So I don't think there's going to be any debate over whether Hezbollah is a terrorist group and has a lawful right to exist. They do not. They're an unlawful group, and they're engaged in unlawful behavior. So now, can the Israelis do a better job going after Hezbollah? Here's the problem with terrorist groups. When you hide in civilian territory, when you hide in schools, when you hide in apartment buildings, it makes it very hard to go after them. Now, it's true, Israel could go in with troops on the ground, go door to door in these apartment buildings and take out Hezbollah. The problem, of course, then is going to be, well, Israel's invaded Lebanon. They're taking territory. This is unlawful as well. And so it's a tough position to be in, whether the United States, you're the United Kingdom, you're Germany, you're Spain, you're any country fighting terrorism. When you fight a terrorist group that hides inside civilian populations, it's a very difficult road to hoe when you're trying to go take out that terrorist group.
And what about the Israel-Lebanon talks set to take place in Washington next week? Because the government of the Lebanon doesn't necessarily speak for the militia of Hezbollah. So you wonder just how much real progress can be made between Israel and Lebanon at a government level.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, we've seen these talks. We saw talks about 2-3 weeks ago in D.C. They agreed, Israelis and Lebanese governments agreed to a ceasefire. It doesn't really matter that much because the Lebanese government, to your point, does not represent Hezbollah. Hezbollah is an armed group that is not supportive of the Lebanese government, in fact, opposed to the Lebanese government, fighting from within Lebanon, and they're sponsored by Iran, and they're attacking Israel, attacking Lebanese civilians as well. And so the Lebanese government wants them out, but the Lebanese government is ineffectual when it makes an agreement with Israel because it can't control its own territory. This is a problem, by the way, we've seen over and over again. We saw it in the northern areas of Pakistan. And the United States, for decades, conducted operations in places like Ethiopia, in places like Eastern Africa, in places like the northern areas of Pakistan. When the government of that country couldn't control its own territory and terrorist plots were being operated against us, we took action. The Israelis are doing the same thing in Lebanon there.
Right. And when it comes to the influence that Iran has over Hezbollah, I mean, it would appear that the Iranians now want to effectively use the 60 days of potential talks, technical talks between itself and the United States. And if Hezbollah attacks Israel, Israel will, of course, attack Hezbollah, and that will put the talks in jeopardy. If Iran says to the leadership of Hezbollah, we own you, you're our proxy, you're threatening the ceasefire, do not attack Israel, what chance the militants will listen to them?
Well, look, a pretty high chance, I think, in the sense that Hezbollah relies on Iran for its support, for its weapons, for its funding. Now, has at times Hezbollah ignored Iran? Of course. But, the same thing, everyone's always talking about Israel and the United States. Why isn't Bibi Netanyahu listening to Israel, listening to the president? Of course, the president controls the United States. Bibi Netanyahu is the prime minister of Israel. They both have their own things to argue in favor of. But at the end of the day, Hezbollah is nothing more than an Iranian proxy. And so for their own benefit, if they're going to survive long run, they've got to do what the Iranian government tells them. There are times at which they diverge, but they're not often.
And when you look at the prospect of success for the detailed talks between the USA and Iran, when you consider that the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the so-called Obama Iran nuclear deal, took around 18 months to 2 years to properly negotiate, hammer out and agree, and we have a clock ticking of 60 days, 57 days now. What chance of meaningful progress, Jamil?
Well, it's hard to know what chance of meaningful progress is because it took us this long to get to the current, MOU that's just 2 pages. How you get a full-fledged deal in 60 days is going to be very hard to do. The problem, of course, also is the parties are pretty far apart, and they have been. The United States has demanded repeatedly no enrichment on Iranian soil. It now appears that the Trump administration may have given that up, which, if true, would be unfortunate because it takes us back to where the JCPOA, the so-called Obama nuclear deal, was at. It also, there's also some debate about whether we'll get the enriched uranium that's there in Iran out, when we will get it out, who will get it out, how we get it out now that some of it is buried under the bombing that the United States has done. And so these are serious and important issues. And then, of course, Iran's support for terrorism, which wasn't dealt with in the JCPOA. That's something the Trump administration has made a big deal about. Their use of ballistic missiles. Interestingly, the Trump administration was absolutely dead set against Iran having ballistic missiles. But now you've seen Vice President J.D. Vance going out public and saying, well, look, other countries have ballistic missiles. Maybe Iran gets to have them too. This is a bizarre position for an American leading official to take, particularly, a hawkish administration that's bombed Iran's nuclear sites, that's attacked Iran in order to keep them away from a nuclear weapon. For them to say, for the United States government, for the Vice President of the United States to say, well, it's fine if Iran has ballistic missiles of the variety, by the way, that can conduct space launch and that can conduct nuclear weapons capable attacks against foreign countries, including Europe and the United States. That just seems crazy.
All right. Jamil, Jaffer will end it there. Jamil is the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute at George Mason University.